Hello guys, Coach Theo here on Common Sense, and it's the most wonderful time of the year. I'm talking or singing, of course, about that special time of the year, that also special time of the year when we all get together to not eat anything for 5 days in a row. It's time for the Christmas fast of 2024. So some of you guys might not know this about me because I put out most of my fasting content when this YouTube channel was way smaller, but I'm someone that's big on fasting. I like intermittent fasting, but especially prolonged fasting, as in not consuming a single calorie for multiple days in a row. And ever since 2019, I've done this annual Christmas fast at the end of the year, and I always invited other people to join me. So this video will be an overview of this sort of Christmas fasting challenge, in a sense, because I know that many people, when I invited them to the Christmas fast, that was the first time they ever did a multiple day fast, and some people might have tried it but wouldn't get around to doing it unless they joined this sort of challenge. So not everyone has to do it in the exact same way, like not the entire 5 days. I'm gonna give you the sort of framework. In this video, I'm not gonna go through exactly everything that goes into fasting, like all the benefits, what happens in the body, or everything I'd ever think about, because I have so many other videos, but I link my most recent one where I did a sort of overview of everything I think about when I do fasting. But please guys, if anything comes up, I'm gonna be putting out more fasting videos throughout the challenge. So anything that comes up, any question you have, that's like not too, or fasting for this very specific medical condition, you know, something that would be relevant for a fast like this, please keep it coming, guys. So the official time I've done it is the 26th through the 31st. The only exception was when I lived in Greece and I was already quite lean, so I did like a 48-hour fast and just let other people fast longer then. But other than that, I've done it like this. And for me, it's just because in my family, it's always been the 24th, the 25th, and 26th. That's when we different gatherings, and we're gonna be eating a lot of Christmas food, right? And then on after the 26th, it's pretty much done. So the dinner in the evening, that's when I'll start the fast, and I'll break it sometime earlier in the 31st. So, technically, it's always been just under 5 complete days like that, but almost 5 days, okay? And so the reason, I'm gonna give little tweaks and examples of how you can do it differently. Of course, you can come up with it yourself too. But let's talk about the reason for this kind of fast. Well, there are many positive things about the fast, but why specifically the Christmas fast at the end of the year? Well, it is a reset for the next year, for 2025 in this case. So of course, physically, I mean, you give the body a break. The digestive system don't have to work. Being in a fasted state starts a bunch of processes that otherwise, don't happen or happen way less. And it's this huge growth hormone spike that you get from fasting. You turn up autophagy, this mechanism when the body recycles old damaged cells. And, without getting into all the science like that, you can just feel that, when you're always putting stuff into the body that it has to process, digest, and put out the literal shit, right? When you just give the body a break, you just feel clean. Just clean yourself out physically like that. But also, there's a mental or even spiritual aspect to it. Like, I think a lot of people can understand why an experience like fasting would be spiritual. You're removing things. Instead of always, like we do way too much, these numbing ourselves out in different ways, you're actually removing things. So there's less of a cloud of just stimuli going on, and it's more just you. But one thing that I always say is that fasting is surprisingly good for mental health. Not that if you have a genuinely tricky life situation that just goes away if you fast. Modern human beings, we get stressed out or worried, anxious, depressed, and not full on always, just a little bit, but by all kinds of things, living as a modern stressed human being in their little life puzzle. And there's just something that changes when you take away eating. Even someone like me that has fasted a lot, it's not like I'm concerned that I'll starve when I'm fasting, but when you haven't eaten for 48 hours plus, it's like just as a being, your priorities change, If you had something, I'm a little bit stressed about this work or this social thing or whatever, getting into a fast like that, it's just hard to care about it. And then we come back from the fast. And that's kind of how I see it. You're this human being just in the midst of everything. Doing the fast is like you can step outside all of that, and then you can kind of come back to it, look at it with new eyes. And of course, it's kind of setting yourself up to win. Like you end the year with something like that, overcoming that, and you, yes, got that one in the bag already when the new year starts. And then I'll just say, for bodybuilding reasons, this was never why I started doing this, but effectively this fast becomes a sort of mini cut for me, because I'm someone that starts bulking at the end of summer or early fall, and I don't really start cutting again until early spring. But doing this fast, obviously, even if it was never the reason, is right in the middle there. It ends up being a sort of mini cut, even if it's just 5 days. When you don't eat anything, someone like me is going to end up losing like a couple kilos of fat from that. And of course, even if you're going to be bulking, it's a little bit like you're the arrow, that you pull back with a fast, and then you just really, you're ready. You're taking a step back just to be ready to go like that. And of course, if you're someone that needs to lose more fat still, that's your main focus, something like a fast is a kickstart to that. That's actually how I'd recommend for most people that they're not going to do it in a more structured way. That's how I think all people could benefit from fasting. That if you're natural bodybuilders, if there's something I'd like to kind of influence the natural bodybuilding community with, is just make people use fasting to some degree. And what I really think, even someone that's going to do more of a daily deficit to cut in the end, kickstarting it with a longer fast, just literally like a bigger drop in weight immediately, and just the confidence and like momentum you can gain from something like that. So you see, it's a sort of mental, physical, spiritual reset, complete reset to be ready for the next year. And so fasting is a test in integrity. We were just talking about other reasons to do it if you never did it, It's really a test. Can you go through with what you said you were going to do? And it's actually even more of it, can you not do what you said you weren't going to do? Because fasting is not so active, right? It's not something you do, it's more something you refrain from eating, and more things it could be, as we're gonna get into, right? So let's talk about the different kinds of fasts we can do this. Saltwater fast is the type. Now I didn't bring it, but this is the typical kind of fast that I've done the most. I'll say now, I've fasted without the salts and just been drinking water. It works, but the idea with the salt is just the electrolytes, It's nothing about weight loss or anything like that. It's just a way to try and feel a bit better on a fast. Like how you feel on a fast, it can depend on the fast, but also the person. Like I've done it so much now that I generally feel quite good throughout a fast, but you might not always. And like little headaches and stuff, the salts can help with. But I'll say that I notice it's just not the same thing still when you're not eating carbs, as you won't be on the fast. The salts do something, but they just don't stick to you in the same way. But it's kind of like, why not? When you can add something to the water that's 0 calories, won't interfere with the fast like that, why not? So at this point, I typically just throw intuitively, because I've done this so much, I just throw some of the salts a few times throughout the day on my tongue and just chug it with a glass of water. But if I were to mix it, the way I do it is like any sea salt, that sodium chloride, any regular sea salt, table salt will be that. But an unrefined sea salt will be better with the trace minerals and that. And then the other one is potassium chloride. And this one you typically, to get it pure only, you typically have to order it online. And I've taken 1 teaspoon of each per liter of water. Then there's not really any specific amount you need to consume or something. It's like drink by feel, but that's the sort of concentration. And I'll say many, like here, the one I had, even if it would be best with these unrefined salts with trace minerals, just for a fast like this, there are some of these, like they often call them light salts. They're kind of 50-50-ish of sodium chloride and potassium chloride. I don't think those are bad. I don't think there's anything like dangerous in it. It's just that they might be a little bit more empty on other minerals. But for our main electrolytes on a fast like this, it will get the job done. So you can take one of those salts if you find it. Take 2 teaspoons of that one per liter of water. Then there are dry fasts, when this is not something I'd recommend to a beginner, but I'm going to suggest to you that even on a longer fast, let's say you're someone that decided at 3 days, I'll fast on the 27th, 28th, and 29th, for instance. If that's what works for you, what feels like a good level of a challenge for you, something you can do is, even if you're not going to do the fast completely dry, as in not even drinking water, you could decide that one of the days, the first day or the last day, for instance, I'm actually going to go 24 hours. It's just to add something to it. And fasting doesn't have to be so black and white. I either doing a dry fast or a saltwater fast. It's like, I got one dry day in, right? But this, of course, dry fasting is something you have to be a bit more careful with. Of course, it's a bigger stress on the body, even removing water. But I'll tell you, I've done 3-day dry fasts many times. I've always recovered and felt great. There are some unique benefits to dry fasting too that we're not going to talk too much about here. But one thing to keep in mind about dry fasting is that one thing you often do to protect the kidneys as you dehydrate so they don't get too acidic is to take some, what is it called? Baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, So you could just take a glass of that with a teaspoon, a glass of water with a teaspoon of that, and it will help protect the kidneys throughout a dry fast. But seriously, if you're going to do a longer one of those, that's up to you, but go looking for some more information about it, right? Dopamine fast. So I'm going to get to actually how my Christmas fast is going to be a little special. But I put as some examples, like we want to remove, for a dopamine fast, we will remove some typical things that are just entertaining, pleasurable to us like that. Social media and screens would be a big one for a lot of people, but other addictions and vices, right? So before I talk about some things I think is good to try on a fast, like activities that work well on a fast, I'm going to tell you how my fast is going to be a little special this year. I'm actually going to do a sort of dopamine fast because, as the OGs will know, some of my leftover not as good habits is that I consume a bit too much coffee and I use snus, these tobacco nicotine pouches you put under the lip, right? And I've always said, I think I don't have to quit them completely. I actually think they have some benefits at the right dose, but I've been honest that my usage is higher than it should be. But it's always been a little hard for me to motivate to, because I've done these dopamine fasts from nicotine and caffeine to kind of stump my, dependency on them. I can always come back and use less. But I've always sort of when life gets stressful, I've kind of autopiloted back to my higher consumption. And I think it's because I've never seen, okay, I understand just that it should be, but why though? I don't really notice so much problems from it. But something I'm starting to see now is that when I have mildly just uncomfortable feelings that I quite don't know where they come from, when think of it as I don't feel stressed, but I just have this kind of discomfort, some kind of uneasiness within me. I've noticed that, it's probably that these stimulants sometimes affect me more than I think. And I actually, for the first time, I actually feel like I see a good reason I want to do it less. So I'm going to take the opportunity to make this into a dopamine fast. So I'm probably going to go out to a summer house, it's not summer, but a house that my family owns, not too far away, and just be there by myself, no food. Yes, salt water, but no stimulants as well. For this reason, I've always done daily vlog videos from my Christmas fast. So for this reason, I won't be doing this because I just gotta give myself a break. I'm not gonna feel good during the first 2 days in particular, but I'll prepare videos so that I have something to put out, and I'm definitely gonna put out towards the end of the fast. In this case, I've stayed away completely. The most intense dopamine fast I ever did was that I went out to the same house. No food, no stimulants, no phone, no electricity even. Now, I don't feel like I have to focus as much on that screen part. It's mainly about these stimulants, so I'll actually allow myself to, watch something just to get me through. If I watch something, YouTube or some movie or whatever, But again, this is like a time you could decide something. You don't have to go completely, you might not have any dependency on nicotine or something like that. All of us, I think, could do with a little bit less screen time. So for some of us, it's hard to completely put away the phone, of course, because we have work, and I've always had, because I work a lot from my phone. when I did that, I had to tell everyone and reschedule things, so I just had nothing going on those days. But you could do something probably, like, oh, I'll actually, in the evening time, there'll be no screens, there'll be no phone, or something like that. The point is just that even if you decide that a saltwater fast of like 3 days, for instance, is good enough for me, you can throw on little things. Like, you think of what more can I fast from, really, you know. So, little ideas about things to do on the fast. Definitely get out in nature. Like, all the things I'm going to suggest that you do are things I think you could do even with fasting, are great things to do. But because we can't do as much, and things that the experience might be a little different, a little turned up, you know, when fasting, I'm going to suggest them here. So getting into nature, you know, again, when you're deeper into a fast, 48 hours plus, go into nature, you're just going to notice how senses are turned up and how you just appreciate like fresh forest air, or just the look, the sounds, the quietness, the stillness, you know. So definitely something to consider. I put the meditation in the same, because I'm someone that, you know, meditation doesn't just have to be sitting down like this, but it can be for sure. And since there's just going to be less distractions, less just being numbed out by with food, we don't realize how just because it's not a high like from drugs like that, but it really affects us and puts us in a certain state, and you're just going to notice more about yourself when the body isn't just working like this all the time. So whether you sit down to meditate or go out in nature, you know, stillness and quietness, that sort of environment you should definitely expose yourself to when fasting. Put sauna and cold plunge. So especially the sauna has, these are things I'm a fan of again, either way, but especially the sauna has a lot of synergistic effects with the fasting. You know, the anti-inflammatory effect, the growth hormone boost, and the autophagy are all things that, you know, that both sauna and fasting turns up. So together, it really, you know, even not having been fasting so long, 20 hours fasted or something, if you take a sauna session, you will notice that your body feels differently than otherwise. Like the joints are even smoother, you know. So it's a great thing, and it's kind of enjoyable, you know. It's just some kind of sensation you still get to experience when fasting. The cold plunge, it's not as much about like synergistic effects. I know people that have had ideas about combining even dry fasting and cold plunges, but it's more like the challenge, you know. So on last year's Christmas fast, on the last day, so on the 5th day, before breaking the fast, I went down, it was like, I don't know, minus 10 degrees in the air. I went for a cold plunge, and that just makes you feel alive, you know. Not eaten for 5 days, trained hard the day before, and doing a cold plunge in that climate just makes you feel like kind of a badass, kind of a beast, you know. That's the thing, many things I think about, that, you know, if you want to be a beast, for us, like if we're talking mainly about men now, in the modern times, it's like we're so cuddled, you know, we don't have to go to war or fight, which is a good thing, of course, but we're so used to being so comfortable. If you want to be a real badass, you know, like you gotta expose yourself, you gotta create the sort of, you know, intimidating, stressful, challenging circumstances like this. It's just sort of, you know, just like we train in the gym to get stronger and build a muscle, but we train in a different way when we do things like this, right? So speaking of training, just say, training, I train so hard all the time, you know, so I'm not even so worried. Like when fasting, it's when I think of it like, yeah, well, I can take a break from training now. I'm not going to get, you know, building blocks from protein anyway. So why break that muscle down? So my philosophy when it comes to training when fasting is that it's not really, as long as you go back to training the way you usually do and eat protein when you're not fasting, it's not really like a few days of fasting and not training. You don't have to think about it too much. But if you're going to train, so there are two things. The first thing is just that what I would prescribe is either go and do lower volume and just kind of one tough set per muscle. And the idea is just to give the minimum stimulus to just send a signal to the body that we still need these muscles when fasting. So please catabolize something else if you have to. I'll say I've never been able to observe muscle loss from a fast, even when going into my longest 7.5 day fast with like clear abs before. I could not tell that I lost any muscle, and in fact, soon after the fast, I looked in better shape than ever. So, don't worry about that. Just don't. People think I'm on steroids and things, and I've been fasting a lot throughout this year. It's just not gonna, as long as you come back to the training and protein. But if something, maybe you even just like training, I would say go and do the sort of minimum dose, which could be just one hard set per muscle group, or maybe a few more sets, but just dial down the intensity to maybe 60%, what you usually do. But we can also again fast as a sort of challenge. We can train on the fast as a sort of challenge, a sort of anti-fragility training that we don't think of our training as in this is to build muscle. It's more like it's a challenge. So it might be different this year because I'm just gonna see what happens after the dopamine fast part there. But what I've done is on the 4th day, before breaking it the next day, I've gone and done a sort of full body workout where I'm looking to just do a 1 rep max on some compounds, maybe a front squat, maybe weighted chin up, weighted dip. I think these were some from last year. And maybe do 1 working set of reps. And then just throw in little isolation exercises, almost just for fun, But the idea has always been just that kind of challenge. It's like, it's not about training results. It's more about challenging myself to do something like that. And it's kind of a cool experience to see how strong you actually still are. People think they need their fucking banana before a workout when they've been eating all day, every day, always, You just don't. You'll notice when you go train after not having eaten anything for several days. And to some degree, you're going to perform worse on some level. But when it comes to absolute strength, I've found that there's a minuscule difference. But you would gas out. If I do tons of hard sets with reps, which I tried in the past, I would just lose more reps I would gas out way sooner. But in terms of absolute strength, it's actually kind of shocking, to be able to move pretty much the same weight you otherwise could. So if I'm just to add something at the end here, if you are a skinnier guy, you just sit this one out, Like everyone, I'm someone that thinks, I love fasting, but it's also, I'm not crazy about it. Not everyone has to do it at all times for all purposes, and people can find their balance with different things they do at different levels. But of course, being a believer in fasting, I think everyone could have use for it at some point for something. It's just that it's not something you have to do all the time. I don't fast all the time either. So if you are on the skinnier side, maybe wait until you put on some more size, Like even a guy that's currently skinny can benefit from fasting at some point, but it's just like, save that, put on some muscle, even some fat, put some food in the fridge, as I call body fat, because we effectively eat from ourselves when we fast, right? But well, I guess the last thing I can say is, since I won't be doing the sort of vlog style videos this year, I'll link the old ones, like I start with just the first day, and you'll find the other ones. But you could just know that it's kind of, that was a few months before this channel became bigger, stumbling all over my words now. But I don't know, for you that found me more recently, it can just be a little fun to see, just knowing that, that was right before the channel took off more. Can also be interesting to know that I was still not feeling all that great. The fast was, just like I said, this sort of stepping out of my current life situation and being able to take a fresh look at things. I came back with a fresher perspective. But you could just see that those videos really show how I would do it most of the time, right? So, guys, that is it. You can like and comment with your questions, or tell us how you're gonna do your fast, because this is a span. Of course, there has been people that just got the idea to fast but couldn't do it. So if you're gonna do it later, fine. But if we're gonna be all fasting together, because that's a part of this too, also, of course, just knowing that a whole bunch of people are doing it at the same time. So please let us know how you'll be trying it. Any questions you have. I do holistic bodybuilding coaching, guys. I'm also going to put out, by the way, some kind of beginner program, just for free, for people that want to start next year, but people that really want to take it to the next level with some more personal guidance and accountability from me. If you're interested in my coaching programs, I do holistic bodybuilding coaching, getting jacked and stacked mentally, physically, and spiritually, becoming that individual just manifests in epic physique through the person that they are, that you become through these programs. So if you're interested, you can send me a DM on Instagram or email me. It's in the description below. I'll get back to you, tell you about my different programs. Pick up my training book, everything mindset, philosophy, and training related, even how to combine prolonged fasting with training in the best way. To me, I think it's unique. I don't think you can find that sort of information anywhere else. So you can pick up my book, and please subscribe for more content about fitness, fasting, losing weight, building muscle, self-improvement, stoicism, mental health, philosophy, spirituality, mindset. It is a mindset, guys. It's the most wonderful time of the year when we don't eat anything together. Peace.